We've always been able to work through our differences calmly as friends, and we will continue to do that. I want to assure you this morning that that is still the case. I spoke to President Trump at length yesterday, and I told him that I really felt that my mission here, even though we planned this back in the fall, we didn't know how the events would develop over the last few days. But I told the President that I felt that my mission here today was to encourage our friends and help to calm the waters, so to speak, and I hope to do so.
Timing really is everything. And speaking of timing, welcome back to Way Too Early. It is just past 5:30 here on the East Coast, 2:30 out west. I'm Ali Vitale. That, of course, was the House Speaker Mike Johnson addressing British Parliament just a short time ago. He wrapped up right as we came on the air. But he's also done interviews while overseas, including with a British news outlet yesterday, where Johnson downplayed the president's push to acquire Greenland and insisted instead Trump is deserving of the Nobel Peace Prize. Watch.
Look, I think we're going to get beyond this little rift. I don't think it's a threat to NATO or to this special relationship that we have in the long run. The president greatly values NATO, and in fact, to your point, he's done more for NATO than anyone in history. I mean, the fact that everyone has agreed to go to 5% of GDP as their commitment for this security concern is a very important development, and it would not have happened but for President Trump. I think he has deserved the Nobel Peace Prize. He's ended 7 or 8 conflicts and wars around the globe.
He seems very keen on that.
He does, and it's well earned. In fact, there's a number of persons of my colleagues, speakers from parliaments around the world, who will be nominating him jointly, I think, for the next Nobel Peace Prize. But this issue in Greenland, I think, should not be a disruption to all of that. I think we'll get past this.
Probably easier said than done. But there the speaker is, again, reminding of the importance of the Nobel Peace Prize that even Trump himself is now trying to say, no, I don't actually even care about that. Okay. Meanwhile, Democrats are outraged over some of the Trump administration's controversial actions, and that outrage is only growing as the party's voters are also looking for accountability. But a problem is now forming for Democratic leaders in Washington who are trying not to alienate potential swing voters by being too anti-Trump ahead of the midterms. It's the crux of my latest story with MS Now congressional reporter Michael Schnell. Our new article is out right now on ms.now, so everyone should head over and read it as well. But really what we're driving at here is something that Democrats have been grappling with for months, and I think we begin with an anecdote in the piece about how Congresswoman Robin Kelly of Illinois comes forward, tells top Democrats, I'm going to push ahead on an impeachment resolution of Kristi Noem after what happened on the ground in Minneapolis. Yep. And one of her colleagues, Congresswoman Susie Lee, our sources tell us, says, no, I completely disagree with that. That's a bad political move for frontliners, people in swing seats. Why is that so emblematic of the bind that they're in right now?
Yeah, I think we should also just point on the fact that, of course, as you mentioned, today is 1 year of the second Trump administration. Yep. We've been in this process of watching Democrats. The first step was picking up the pieces and regrouping after those crushing election losses in 2024. I think some of them finally think they've gotten their footing at this point. They put health care in the forefront, which is a huge issue for them. Yeah. They're making health care an affordability issue, which is going to be key for the midterms. Now they're looking at how can we push back on President Trump, right? We're a year in. We've seen what he's done. We have a lot of concerns with what he's done. What can we do now? That's when we get to this accountability part of it, where we're seeing this divide and this disagreement within the House Democratic caucus. You have some folks, as you mentioned, like Robin Kelly, who are very gung-ho about impeachment at this moment. They say the president, his cabinet officials have clearly committed impeachable offenses. There needs to be discipline for that and punishment for that. Let's go down the road of impeachment. You and I know well that's never happening at this moment. Yeah. Republicans hold the majority in both the House and the Senate. All Democrats aren't even on board with this, which brings us to like a Susie Lee type, right? She's what is known as the battleground leadership representative, which essentially means that she's in charge of making sure that those Democrats who are in purple districts, they're known as frontliners, people who really make or break the majority for the caucus, that their voice is heard. And there's a real concern among some of those lawmakers, but even others at large, and maybe some who are even in safe Democratic districts, that we don't want to run on a platform that is just anti-Trump, right? That sentiment, and Trump may drive folks to the polls, but when they're choosing who they want to vote for, they want people to vote for cost of living and for affordability and for health care, not for just this anti-Trump sentiment. There's even concerns that there could be some backlash, knowing that this is all well to fail. It could show that the Democrats should have been focusing on something else instead of this failed venture. We're seeing this chasm play out right now within the House Democratic caucus, and it's just fascinating because For years, Democrats have been saying we need to push back on President Trump. They have the opportunity now, kind of.
Yeah.
They don't know how to do it.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem, is they have a base that is just clamoring for action, clamoring for the party to show some creativity of pushing back. I'm the first person to remind, whenever I talk to advocacy groups who are frustrated with what Democrats in Congress are doing, this is just what it is in the minority. Yep. And yet there are levers that they can be pushing and messaging, including on impeachment, for what accountability might look like. And I think this balancing act is that much more interesting going into a midterm year, especially when some of them will also admit, yeah, if we get back into the majority, we're going to push for accountability. Sure. But it's not clear if accountability is impeachment, or is it just using gavel power to investigate any number of these various things, right? I mean, they're pushing towards something.
Or what we're seeing right now is floating this accountability as we're not going to fund the Department of Homeland Security unless you make changes to how ICE is funded, unless you make changes for accountability measures there for ICE agents, given what's happening in Minneapolis and across the country. We saw sort of Republican Democrats use their heft in the minority, what they could do with that shutdown, right? They refused to support government funding unless those ACA subsidies were addressed. Did it work out for them? Some would say yes, because they got that vote and they pushed health care into the forefront. Some would say no, because those Obamacare subsidies have since lapsed and Congress is still fighting over how to do it. So sort of after the government funding showdown, they're trying to figure out what they can do next. Some are saying wait for impeachment until you know you can actually have the votes and actually do it. Some are saying let's have the conversation now. I will note a little different, but back in, I guess, what was that? 2018, 2019, Nancy Pelosi was getting pushed by her progressive left and some of the base to impeach President Trump.
Yep.
Yes, they eventually got there with the Ukraine phone call with President Zelensky, but it took her a while until she knew she had all her ducks in her row and there was an actual chance to do this. Impeachment is something that you can't put back in the box, and once you pull that trigger, the I word, which is sometimes explosive, is out there in the public. I think a lot of Democrats, particularly those frontliners, Susie Lee types, are aware and keenly aware of that dynamic, and they don't want to fumble this and handle this incorrectly and then get blowback at the ballot.
Yeah, especially after the 2024 election, when many people inside the party were saying, okay, we can no longer just be against Trump. We have to tell people what we are for.
They need a platform.
They need the platform, and they're trying to build it in real time. MS Now congressional reporter Michael Schnell, thank you. And of course, our reporting is online.